Okay, how you doing? I'm going live. I'm reshooting. I had shot something earlier, and as I streamed, there was glitches in the recording, and it's an important story. No, well, not story. It's an important piece to be make sure that everything's concise. Anyway, long story short, here's I will only go over this once. Because I like to practice principles before personality in my life, and all the work of truthtoday.org is not meant to be about me. Um, but I think in relation to WMD squared, which is the military term, I'll refer you to James Giordano's lecture at West Point called "The Brain as the Battlefield of the Future," in which he goes WMD squared is breaks down to weapons of mass destruction and disruption. Neuroscience, weaponized neuroscience as neuroweapons. And Dr. James Diogano, he tells, I'll put the link, but he tells the cadets that he says you will encounter neuroweapons in your personal life and in your professional life. Whether those two are related, irregardless, blah 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 blah, because it is in play today, and I know it is because I maybe through happenstance or whatever. It's only speculation to how I fell in this kind of web, but somehow, if whether people are being used as guinea pigs to a degree or war games, who knows what the deal is. But from I was living in Staten Island, New York at the time, and I'll just give you some markers. Um, how I really understood was I was having a conversation with a friend. I had gone through an ordeal to a degree, many, and he asked me. I had a lot of. It's just one thing was happening after another, and he asked me. He said, "James, have you ever heard of gang stalking?" And I had it. He says, "Let me send you a website," and he sent me a website. It was fightinggangstalking.com, and when I opened it up, it was a list of tactics used by it's COINTELPRO. It's intelligence agencies use these tactics, and it goes back to the Nazi, the Stasi. They used to call it Zersetzung, which translates to decomposition. Here now with WMD squared, it's referred to as non-touch torture. So what happened was that all of these events were happening, and I was just getting accustomed to it. That I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't share that with my friend. But obviously he identified some. His father was a military man, and he had understood some experience of what this stuff was, and so he sent me the information. So and that opened up the door of me looking into targeted understanding what targeted individuals was, because in intelligence they call whatever the target. If an intelligence agency is doing some kind of are targeting someone, they call them the targeted. And what has happened is through Homeland Security and everyone being a civilian corps, infraguard, I mean, it's all intelligence. So I think it's gotten out of hand, and people are targeted individuals. But I'll go further of how serious it is, and it's neuroweapons, as Dr. James Giordano suggests. And the only reason I shared this is because it is clandestine, and these things are happening. It's like silent weapons, right? So after the storm Sandy, I had there was a series of events that happened, and I'll try to get to points that are concise, because it's in a long timeline of things happening that you're unaware of, and then discovering that maybe things were happening. It's hard to put it together. And one of the in the fightinggangstalking.com, bouncing around a bit, they show the tactics used by these intelligence agencies, and one of them is called gaslighting. And what gaslighting is they try to make the target either make them crazy or make them appear crazy, or make them think that they're themselves crazy, or appear crazy to discredit them or to make them crazy. So anyway, long story short, well, not long story short, but to make a concise point, I was after a series of events, I was staying with family, and I was waking up in the middle of the night. Like I thought maybe I was developing sleep apnea because as soon as I fell asleep, it was like I would wake up or I'd almost come out of it, and so I was awake for 7 days, and I would get up in the morning, and I would drink a lot of coffee. I'd go running, I'd go exercise because right before this period, it was structurally, financially, things were bad, but I was at the best place in my life spiritually, to use that word. Health wise, I was in great shape. I was doing a lot of pre-production work and some of my own work. So what happened was, so now I'm awake for 7 days, and I was getting jumpy, and I was hearing stuff out the window. There was things making me, I was like getting a little paranoid. And so I'll jump to a series of events where I went to a friend's, and things still kept going, but I went back. It's a little all over the place because I'm trying to leave out unnecessary details. So I went to a relative at my sister's place, and it became worse. And she said, well, maybe there's something wrong. And I started thinking, well, maybe I am crazy. Because people who are crazy don't think they're crazy. And then there were like 2 days I stayed there where I started getting hit with, now I understand it to be either V2K or heterodyning, they call it. You can go to Massachusetts Targeted under patents, and you'll see the technology, because I've learned all this since. At the time, I didn't know. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. I was going crazy. So it had to be the second day that this went so far that, and you got to understand beforehand, before this, even when I was up awake, I was still going out running every day. I was doing all the work I had to do. I was kind of optimistic in pushing forward. So anyway, then I went through this phase, went through these things where I was and understand what I've come to understand is all of these intelligence agencies, they compartmentalize everything. So people may be participating in certain things and be unaware of it. They use slander a lot as well. They'll slander someone, like to a neighbor, so that they can put up a camera. Or I know it sounds crazy, but this is what's going on. So anybody I may speak about, I'm not implicating any. I'm just saying this is the events, because who knows how these things are compartmentalized, because they're intelligence agencies. Or intelligence agency training civilians to do these things. However it works out, I'm not sure. But this is the events that happen. So, and I'll show you. I think you can see here and here. I ended up slitting my wrist. And afterwards, I was in a hospital. I was sitting there, and I understood that there's something wrong. Nothing matched up. You know what I mean? I can tell you now, I was being hit with these neuroscience being weaponized, as Dr. James Giordano suggested. And I was just very fortunate that beforehand, I had stopped drinking years ago. I used to be a heavy drinker. I worked in an atmosphere that was nothing judgment, whether right or wrong. So years ago I had, and it was a huge transition for me. So I would see a therapist, which was outside my kind of realm, which was beneficial for me. But we developed a relationship. She understood where I was coming from. So when I went through this process, and she's a very respected professional. She taught graduate school, so she is an established person in the field of this type of therapy. So before I went into the hospital, I was speaking with her about what was going on. She suggested, well, maybe we should go. And my sister had said, well, James, obviously. So anyway, so I went in. And it was the oddest experience I've ever had. I went into one place for I think it was 2 days, and I was getting hit with this stuff. I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm crazy. But now I know I was getting hit with whatever these new I think they're calling it heterodyning. So they moved me to another section. and I'll just skip through the things because no doctors came to talk to me. They had nothing to do with mental health. No one really spoke to me about any kind of idea. Somebody asked me, well, what happened? I just said, well, I had insomnia. I was up for 7 days because I had a feeling. I understood something was going on. So they were giving me sleeping pills. So one day, I go into the cafeteria. Well, you had time for lunch and stuff. And I was like, I just got to get out of here. But there was a big dude that came in. And he was a patient, supposedly, whatever we're called, right? So, but one of the people who worked there, the staff, went to him and said, Anthony, he said, why don't you take a head count? They never had done that before. So he's getting up counting people, right? And so he comes behind me and he picks up a chair. Now, I worked in bars my whole life. I've been around rough tumble guys. So I was like, all right, well, I'll deal with whatever. But I just had the feeling, I was like, I'm being drawn into something here. So he said, all right, if he swings it, I'm going to do what I got to do. But the staff is all there. This is not like this. So he puts the thing down. I was like, all right, I've just got to get out of here because I'm figuring now they have me in this place. If I act out in some way, they could say I'm crazy and throw me away, or maybe do something. You know, I'm at their mercy at the moment. So that there was another situation there that they gave me Haldol. I had no issues. Like now, before I was like, oh, I thought I was hearing stuff, but it's V2K. They call it V2K. Is go to Targeted Justice, go to Massachusetts Targeted, watch Dr. Giordano's lecture to the West Point cadets, because he talks about all these weapons that they call disruption, weapons of mass destruction and disruption, where they use neural weapons to disrupt a target, whether it be neurologically. They could put people to sleep. Someone's working and they hit them in certain areas and it kind of gets them tired, or they can aggravate someone's anger, or they could just mess with someone's memory, or they can basically tase somebody through neurological, because you're disrupting them. It's insanity. So anyway, so I'm in this hospital. I was like, all right, I'm just going to ride this out. But I didn't take the sleeping pill. So that night, I'm getting hit. It sounds crazy. And with but now I understand. If you go look at V2K, they're even in MIT, they're walking around now with devices outside their face and you don't hear anything in ear, but it resonates within. Because when we hear, right, the vibrations are on the molecules around the ear, and then they reverberate off the eardrum, right? And then we experience the phenomenon of hearing. And if someone else is around that area, depending on the volume of that phenomena, they will hear it too. But what happens with V2K, they also call it the Frey effect. Some the military calls it the voice of God. There's a TED Talk with Woody, blah, blah, blah. He's the inventor of this. So go look at Woody something, TED Talk, voice of God. He's one of the inventors, and he stands up there and gives on a TED Talk, and he gives he shows how these devices work with the audience. But aside from that, so what happens is with the V2K is it reverberates on the skull or on something, so you experience the phenomena of voice or auditory recognition within your brain, your skull, and since it's reverberating in here, it's not heard in the molecules here. So you experience, you're the only one that experience. So I'm in this bed, and I'm hearing this is a chant. It's obviously it's made to frighten people or traumatize people. I forget what it was. We're gonna burn his eyes. So I'm just sitting there going, all right, this is fucking great. But then it was snowing outside too, and I was like, how could I just sit here and take this? So I got out. I was gonna leave. So I started. So there's like 5 security guards, and then I realized, all right, I'm not gonna. I was ready to fight. So they put me down, and they obviously, these guys obviously understood what they were doing, because there was a point where I said, all right, I could fight all these guys, but I'm not. I'll have to go back to, and I understand. So what happened was, one of the guys steps on my bicep, and I didn't do anything. Like, there was nothing that I've done. Like, you know what I mean? It was like to initiate really violence other than, I don't know. So So, but just the fact that I was going outside the perimeter of where I should go, and I was going to leave. So, and the truth of the matter is, they weren't so. I probably could have did damage if I wanted to, but and they knew that. So they kind of put me down. And one guy, he stepped on he tore my bicep is torn right here. If you see, this is my bicep, right? All right. So this is here. I don't know. You can't. Anyway, it's a freak show. Anyway, so I said, all right, I just got to lay low and get out of here. So I got through that, and fortunately I had the therapist that I was in contact with, and I just told her the whole experience. She says, James, I understand. I was like, because they had suggested that I would go to an outpatient thing. And I said, because I had a family member that was concerned, I said, all right, I'll go to one just to keep appeased. And then once I went, I said, this is insanity. And I knew, because initially I had the idea, I was like, well, maybe I am crazy. But what happens is, and this is even, I didn't understand the technology. I just knew there's something was wrong. Because I was, right before this, I was the best space I have ever been in my life. So anyway, so I go, and then I stopped going. I said, I'm not going to go. And I went through the prop just to respect the protocol, whatever these people were doing. I said, all right, thank you. I went one time and I said, thank you. I'm not going to come here anymore. And then, but what happened then, at like 2:30 in the morning, I started getting tased. I say tased, but it's whatever. It's like your electromagnetism is being shot. And there's I heard that Roger Tulsis is a electronics engineer, and he's a private investigator. He's somebody you go look at the details. These things are very common now. They're called directed energy weapons. It's more military. People, you could have a handheld thing. You can make it yourself. But that's part of this targeting thing. And then part of the disruption, WMD squared, is, say, if most people live a 9-to-5 life, right? So if you start getting tased at 2:30 in the morning, you're awake till you have to get ready, and it really disrupts your natural sleeping patterns, which disrupts your healthy recovery of because our bodies all have a natural healing process. So it's very disruptive. And then the gang stalking. And now if you go, like, this is what I saw on fightinggangstalking.com, is they give all the tactics. And it's like things that would happen generally, they compound. It's like something like, say, all right, you have a flat tire. It may happen to you 3 times a week, or they just let the air out of your tire. Just yesterday, someone broke something in my trunk key, so I couldn't get in the key. Like, I have bags where they cut, like, with razor blades, everything. I'll show you. One of the things too is anyway. So these are just the things that have happened. So WMD squared is weapons of mass destruction and disruption. So heterodyning. So what they're doing is, it's like sci-fi. But what I suggest is this, and I don't drink, I don't smoke. I mean, I may have been an ass when I was younger, but I've certainly haven't done anything really. Well, no one really. We live in a country where there is a rule of law that someone should be. There's no justification for this. There's no justification at all. And if you listen to Dr. James Giordano, he tells the students that not only is the military using this new technology as weapons, neuroscience, as weaponizing neuroscience, but private corporations are as well. And if you look at Staten Island, New York, and the relationship with Israel's 8200 is a elite intelligence agency in Israel, and they're at the forefront of hacking, of cyber, AI. Microsoft moved one of its there, has a big corporate presence in Israel where it's AI, 3 different areas, Tel Aviv, there's a few different places. So, and there's a big, I think if I got the numbers right, there's about 500 cybersecurity companies in New York. So now, it's just like this, right? any kind of war, you're gonna have a gunslinger. You know, a guy, what's he comes back? What's his tool? A gun. Now people are coming back from 19 years of the war on terror from the Middle East, and now these are the new weapons. So people are going to use it for many reasons, and they are using it. But the problem is now American citizens are being targeted, and they're being terrorized. There's another presentation from Dr. Robert Duncan from MIT. He does a presentation for MIT. He actually invented some of this technology, and he was a whistleblower, and he was a victim of it himself because he became a whistleblower. And I'm telling you now, I'm 24/7. I get hit with directed energy weapons. I get hit with V2K. The gang stalking isn't as much as it was. There are things where I have bags cut, my car tire, things broken off. And initially, I was dealing with the gang stalking all the time, where you would have people, but this is what the concern is, right? When I was in the hospital, I'm not sure with the idea of biotech. Now coming up, I might just be in some kind of test program, right? The things that I'm dealing with, I'm imagining. Like I looked at information from Richard Lighthouse, who was a NASA engineer, who was part of Targeted Justice, that put up a lot of information. What he had suggested was that the national intelligence groups, or Department of Defense, the Air Force, National, dealt with fusion centers, which were basically like the intermediary between the local government, local Homeland Security, Citizen Corps, InfraGard, the Homeland's relationship with the local police department, medical hospitals, NYU Langone, Home Depot. Because where it really seems to be a problem also is like Homeland Security has a government-private partnership. Now, you could have a corporation here, and I think this may be the tie with all the corporations in Israel. And it could be Saudis. It just seems like they're at the forefront of this technology. And all you need is a few guys that just want to make money and do, however, leverage people. But here is the problem going into biotech. Look at DARPA, look at HARP, and looking into the new vaccines coming up. And let me just unpack this a little bit. Now, say something like I imagined, like people are saying that people were getting hit with, individuals can get hit with directed energy weapons that a personal or individual has. That's a gang stalker who's getting paid to do this. Or you could be hit from a microwave. Like if you have a microwave, all they need is to harness enough energy to hit someone. They take Roger Tulsa's. All they need is your DNA to get your biometric code. And it's like dialing in a cell phone. So they can hit you from, any of these devices or from a satellite, like a cell phone would. It's crazy. I'm jumping around. I'm missing something here that I wanted to touch upon. So Moderna is the company that's being used for this warp seed COVID-19 vaccine. And it's biotech. And this is from the presidents of Moderna's, a quote from the president of Moderna. He said, this is something you need to know about Moderna. They have zero experience in vaccines or flus, but they have a wealth of history and research in genetic engineering. Also, the goal of the vaccine isn't just to create, like a flu shot gives us the body amount of the flu, so it adapts, and it'll adapt further when our body encounters that. No, they want to target the DNA strand of COVID and boost the immunity properties of that temporarily. But we have to understand, and perhaps we'll be able to update this. We'll be able to update it like software. So now if you relate that to Wuhan, China, and you have to understand that not only is China communist, but Wuhan, China is probably the first technocracy. And what is a technocracy? It is an internet of everything, where there is no supply and demand, but it's a social credit score. And it is 24-hour surveillance, and everything is a 24/7 inventory centered with the technology, in which all your behaviors will be either rewarded or punished. Okay, now think of the implications of that. One, who decides what the rules of the society are and when do they get to change them? And if everything you have is connected to these digital devices, whether it could be a chip, it doesn't have to be a chip. You can be given biotech in which it is in your body, right? If you can update a strand of DNA, why can't you just have you be walking around as a living biotech? Maybe I went a little too far, but just think that's the implications. But also, if you get rewarded, if you get punished, they say, well, you won't be able to access. Because it's like, say you have a digital device and you touch agree, or you touch, oh, you need to enter it, but you won't enter it. And they're saying, well, you don't have the update, so you're not allowed to enter this area. It's that simple. But further, say you say, all right, well, good, I don't want any of this. They can punish you by tasing you, like the things that are happening with me, right? You can't, okay, well, you're not going to be allowed to sleep. We're going to disrupt your life for not complying. This is happening now. And this is happening in China. If you see video of people walking and passing out in China, some people are suggesting not only is it... So these are the implications of what, and it's not just me, weapons of mass destruction and disruption. Now, this is the problem with the way we are handling the pandemic. We have stepped over the line of our constitutional rights by global dictates, right? And people saying, oh, well, it's for the safety, and okay, well, but once they go down that line, they're not going to stop. So anyway, that's an aside, because we're implementing. If you look at your direct deposit, it's similar. We're almost getting to the line of. It'd be very easy to implement the social credit score, and people are being targeted already. And you have to understand this. It's in Pennsylvania. Precedent has been set already, right? That no matter if there is an executive order, the law cannot take away an inalienable right. That's it. You know, in a crisis, yes, it seems reasonable to be able to say everybody has to stop what we're doing so we can get the factors of the situation, so we can address that, so no one gets hurt. But one, this is not a pandemic. It's simply not. And even if it is, in the short term, maybe we could justify. But even if it is a pandemic, you cannot alter the Constitution forever for the safety of someone's health. These are preemptive markets, starting with the Bethlehem Doctrine after 9/11, that was written by Bethlehem, who worked for Netanyahu and Tony Blair, Israel, Britain. That said, and you had Richard Pearl and the neocons at the time of 9/11 who stepped over the line of the Nuremberg trials, or the idea that taking an act of aggression was a crime against humanity after World War II. But we said, well, if there's a man around the corner with a gun, an imminent threat was the term, then we should be able to go out and take care of that. So we all justified that because we were all emotional after 9/11. But we have to understand that Bethlehem Doctrine, they redefined the terms of that imminent threat, that it's not only now a man around the corner with a gun, but imminent threat will be defined as a think tank or an intelligence agency that comes up with a theory of how a threat can harm others. There doesn't have to be any time. There doesn't even have to be any place. Now, with this health, now you have the WHO. Then after the swine flu, the WHO made an agreement with the CDC that if there should be another pandemic, that there will be military management of the situation. Now, the WHO has no say. They do not act from the constitutions, the principles of our Constitution. There's a conglomerate, and that's not saying that we would not have open dialogue with the WHO in order to address a pandemic. That's not what's happening. They're creating a military mandate in which there are executive orders here now, right? And if you look all over the world, they're locking places down for health. And as I was on a webinar with the CFFS, Citizens for Free Speech, and Mr. Patrick Wood, he brought up a very important perspective of this situation. So you have the war on terror, right, against an enemy. But now, if you have a war on a virus, right, it's not just a virus. There's a body. The virus is inside an individual. So it is a war on individuals. And it is an invisible threat because who has it? These are not mistakes. And these are all unconstitutional. All of it. Closing down businesses, unconstitutional. But they are bringing in a crisis that they're going to have some kind of solution for. The Great Reset. We don't need a Great Reset. So I went down a line. But the reason why is because my experience is, and I can tell you this, I was living like a monk for at least 12 years. Not that I'm special. I'm an ass. I was making decisions where I did not do anything to harm anyone. I was not doing anything illegal. So, which doesn't justify it anyway. But it can be said, well, who knows what he's doing? Maybe he was doing something and I was not doing a thing. Which doesn't justify being terrorized by directed energy weapons or neural weapons to the point where I would slit my wrist at a time that was one of the best, probably the healthiest physically and spiritually, to use a word, in my life. And this is not to any kind of sensation. I don't want anybody's attention. And know what? Maybe I am. Even if you think I am kooky, my suggestion is please go watch the lecture with Dr. James Giordano, the brain as the new battlefield of the future. Because he's telling this is what they're doing. And look at all the events going around the country. And if a global, because corporations are power structures. At one time, nations had the wealth and power, right? Corporations are just another power structure that have wealth and power. They have their own armies. They have their own security. They had set it up cleverly that we would look at the capitalism as the corporation, which is good, and the communism is on the other side of this fight, right? But we never realized, or we forgot the idea that now the corporations are basically nation states that have no, they're just not grounded on land or bound by those kind of mental structures that we've attached to them. Anyway, so that is my relation to targeted individuals, American citizens. And what I could say is, I have nothing to gain. All this can do is just bring me more problems. But this is, and I'd say, please check Targeted Massachusetts patents, and they have the patents to all this technology. Check out Targeted Justice. Roger Tulsis, Bug Sweep has information about it. Because this is happening to Americans now. And if they're doing it to innocent Americans, what do they have planned? And they're doing it in China already. And in China, the technology isn't Chinese. No, these are global tech companies that are putting this technology right outside your window on your lamppost. Look at the fiber optic cables. Look at these pads. These are all dual technologies. And this is the biotech is being considered dual technologies. The neural weapons are considered dual technologies. They can turn this on people at any time. And at the least, where we're going down with the technology and our dependence on these digital dividers on the internet and everything is no one knows how any of this works. And if you have to do everything interfacing with the Wi-Fi and internet, you're in trouble. There's a dependence being created that once those conveniences could be very easily turned into restrictions. And we're not going to have anything else if there's no cash, if there's no ways to access. You can't even turn on your car. You can't even open up your trunk and look at what's going on. Or no one knows how any of this stuff works. So, and if you don't comply, it won't be just, oh, well, okay, we'll go on your way. No, they'll tase you. There's a woman in Australia who was pregnant. Right? If you're not aware of it, there's lockdowns all over the world. Australia is in lockdown. They have places where the houses, there's a perimeter where you're not allowed to go. And there's a pregnant woman that walked outside her perimeter and she was tackled. Now, you look at the implications of biotech and contact tracing. How do you think they're going to be? What is the new? Okay, well, this is a reason to trace everybody. But they're doing it already. This is justifications for what they're implementing. And look at Homeland Security last year was $51 billion for glorified fucking pardon my language, glorified security guards. We're in trillions of dollars of debt, and they're writing debt that children are going to have to pay for how long is it's going to take $5 billion that aren't even finished school yet, not even in kindergarten yet, to pay someone a pension, health care, and pay to watch the border, to be a security guard, Homeland Security, when we have a police department, we have an army, it's ridiculous. But it's an industry. Preemptive action became an industry, and they're going to do it with health. But what we don't understand is the virus is in you. If there's a war on the virus, there's a war on you, and the authority is going to be you. They're telling you what to do with your body now, where to go, where to stand. We can't have this. We have gone so far out of the line of inalienable rights endowed by the Creator and the Constitution. We're over it already. We're over the line. This is a soft attack on the United States of America. Anyway, aside from that is my relationship to it. Right? I was tased, hit with V2K. Until I thought, wow, maybe I am going crazy. I was put in a hospital. Because this is the thing, if I would have just went through that and not understood what was going on, or not had a therapist already that had my back and understanding that I could talk to and say, there's something wrong here, or a friend to send me a link to a website that just happened to show that this stuff happens out there, I could have went to this outpatient program, started pills, psychotropics, and been a zombie. And so walking around like this, going, oh, geez, I'm crying. And they could be hitting me with V2K and all this stuff. Disruption. Because you know what? Because I'm someone who simply believes in the First Amendment. As an American, I understand that the Constitution is me. It's not my pension plan. It's not my occupation. It's not football. Those are pastimes. Freedom. The principles of freedom. Inalienable rights endowed by the Creator. Understand the separation of church and state. 13 states still had the Constitution. Then it was 50. The borders are secondary. And anybody who's coming out as an American is being tased by people being hired as glorified security guards, Citizen Corps, InfraGuard. You got Israeli security running around like they're American surveillance. You have 8,200 cybersecurity intelligence agency have like 500 offices in New York City. When does that line? Oh no, but they're not. They're not in the military anymore. They moved here and they opened up a company. Oh, I guess there's no ties to Mossad or 8,200 or Israel. Because Black Cube is one of the companies. Harvey Weinstein hired them. A lot of these companies on their websites, how they sell the company is like, well, we're cybersecurity. It's really for corporate espionage. And one of their sales pitches is that we're not in the United States of America, that they are offshore, so they don't have to act in accord to our laws. This is their own websites talking about this, and it doesn't have to be Israel. It could be anywhere else. They just happens to be Israel. And Netanyahu, I saw an interview with him, and now here's an interview with him. He was talking to the business community in Israel, saying that yes, we're number 2, and it's about power. And the Israel Times, they're writing that our cybersecurity teams are going from cyber to health, because all the technology all the cybersecurity technology is going into health. And what is that? Preemptive health, COVID. That's not me. This is them. Home Depot, one of the first companies to start doing automated self-service. We had cameras up. A step of trespass upon freedom and property. We're having after you buy your product, they had people at the door, a security guard that would tell you to stop your movement of travel. They had no right to do that. If you bought a product, if you didn't steal it, you would come out the line and they would check to make sure you don't have anything in your bag. These are games they were playing. That is, once you buy that property, it's your property. Your freedom to travel is not to be impeded by a security guard. He would say stop, and people would just listen, because they're assuming authority. They're taking the door, and then they open your bag and they're looking through your property. Lagone from NYU Lagone in New York was one of the investors of Home Depot that brought in all this technology, right? Eliminate fucking people. Put a security, take away rights. All of the preemptive stuff is going into health. Israel Times said it. The Times of Israel said it. Our cybersecurity firms are going into health. It's Bethlehem Doctrine. Preemptive securities. It's industries, but it's a usurpation of power. It's power. They're global. These are global corporations that do not care. Our own American corporations don't care about the Constitution and our principles anymore, or the American people. Never mind global corporations. So that's my relationship to WMD*squared, because I was targeted. And believe me, I was no threat to anybody. If anything, I would go out of my way to help people. They tased me for 7 days, and just so you know, their own rules is they don't allow people to be kept. They're not allowed, because it's sleep deprivation. It's a tactic. They don't allow sleep deprivation for more than 7 days, because you could kill someone, and it's non-touch torture. So you're not supposed to kill people. So they kept me up for 7 days, hit me with V2K to make me, and then with gang stalking to make me paranoid. That's something that, of course, wish something was going on. And then when I went to someone else, they hit me with the heterodyning, and I said, "Oh, geez, I am going crazy." I went into a hospital because I said, "Okay, I'm crazy." And then they hit me with the shit there, and then I realized, no, I'm not crazy. Luckily, I had a therapist, a professional who teaches graduate school, and all this kind of that was able to And people said to me, and now I understood. So, and what I'm saying is, maybe I am. But what I'll ask you to do is, again, watch Dr. James Giordano's lecture at West Point to the cadets, telling them that neuroscience has been weaponized. And all of the things that they talk about, they did to me. And they're doing to other Americans. And they're doing it to me every day. I just understand what they're doing, so it's lessen the effects. But they've disrupted. But decomposition, the whole idea is this Zersetstrung decomposition. The whole point, which Zersetstrung from the Stasi is WMD squared. Weapons of mass destruction and disruption. But they're doing this disruption now with neuroweapons, neuroscience. That's the connection. And you may think I'm crazy. Fair enough. Go to watch that site. Go to Targeted Justice. Go to Targeted Massachusetts to see the patents. And here, look at the work of Jorge Delgado. Just go to a video they have online of him addressing, no, not addressing. He did an experiment where he took a bull, put a chip in the bull's head, and stopped him in his tracks. And if you look at his quote, his belief system is that human beings think that they have the right to their own will, to their own thought process. This is not true. Society needs to control man, and this is how. So, it's happening, folks. I don't want nothing from you. I don't want anybody's sympathy. And so the last time I'll ever I did this before because the last stream and I did, there was glitches in it. So I deleted it. So they're doing this all over the country, all over the world. Look at cybertorture.com. No, cybertorture.com, because they went to the UN to have it at least acknowledged that this is happening, because it's all intelligence agencies. Cybertorture.com goes into a lot of details. That's actually where I got the Dr. James Giordano lecture. So there's Ella Free you could go listen in on some of the, they have targeted individuals like support. Look at some of the websites there. Catherine Horton, who was a physicist in Europe, who worked on CERN, is a highly respected scientist. So these aren't just whacker jobs where people like to put knuckleheads like me. These are accredited people. Richard Lighthouse, a NASA engineer. William Binney, a whistleblower. Look at Richard Grove and William Binney's interview on Tragedy and Hope. There it is. I'm just telling you the reason I know this is happening. Whether you think I'm crazy or not, there it is. It's happening. And one of the things that I understood that was happening to many people, there's a guy, Richie from Boston, and he does a web channel. I don't agree with all his conclusions, but I know the facts that he's addressing are actual. And I heard him in a conversation with this woman, Dana Ashley. They're more Christian. They rely on that for their faith, which is fine. It's none of my business. It's just not my mode. But I know what they are addressing is actual. They're factors. But I guess the point being is he was speaking with her, and he said, yes. He says, at 2:30 in the morning, I was getting zapped by these things. I said, holy shit, that's the same time. And I knew that for him, this way he said that, it's like, wow, this is like a tactic that they're doing on a time. Scared, like that, and I heard someone else say that too. It's like 2:30 in the morning was a play. Oh, maybe that's when they do their what is it? But they're all doing their schedule routines, their route. I forget the term. I'm getting the mothership zapping me. Their shifts. They're switching their tours. Or not, maybe not. Maybe it's just a private cruise. Anyway, so again, please, this is not about any kind of sympathy. This is happening in the world, and it's an attack. This is terrorism on American soil. This is the actual terrorism. We're supposed to fight them over here, but they used preemptive action against American citizens. It's unconstitutional. So, and they're basically, and this is another thing you need to understand. You look at the George Floyd incident, You see a man standing with his knee on someone's throat, killing them in public. There's something not right there. So I'm not saying this is, I don't know. But the first thing I thought was, wow, this guy they could be using these neural weapons on this guy. How did someone just do that like that? And what's going to happen is, what if they are using these neural weapons on people and they're acting outside of their character and they end up hurting people? So this needs to be looked into. What if we have politicians who are being hit with these neural weapons that aren't? So we can't just, and this is one of the things I noticed with the Dr. James Giordano. It's like a justification, like, well, this is the new game we're playing. No, these are crimes against humanity. Just having this in existence and acting this upon people is a crime against humanity. You're interfering with the inner being, natural biometric being of a human, natural thought process, natural emotional process, to disrupt them for some kind of political game, for a game. These people are out of their minds. We've let these people they have too much power. They just have to be addressed and called out for what it is. Because this is insanity. I put on the news, and people have lost their minds. We're living in a fantasy world. It's an illusion. Corporations own all of these televisions, and they're the ones telling people to put masks on. The television, all of the media is controlled heavily by global interests. Anyway, probably went too far. So listen. It's just about being aware. People are being manipulated, and they just found they've not only do they manipulate us through the bullshit that's saying, they literally want to they want to interfere with your normal thought process or normal state of being. And at the least, the Wi-Fi we're being saturated with, 60 hertz, our oxygen absorbs it. So there's many issues here that need to be addressed. It's not just like, oh, well, everything hurts you. It's like smoking cigarettes. Everything affects you. This is way far down the line of the dangers that erupt. Anyway, what I can tell you is WMD² is Zersetstrung, is decomposition, and it is what is targeting Americans. And I experience it every day. So anyway, have a good night.